Now let us go and create our API over here, and for that let's first go to the core over here, and let's create the one new folder over here. Let's create the router over here, and we will add the utility file over here, or let's call this one as the router over here, router router over here .py file over here. And let's go over here and create the function, and that will be of the get the VRSIONE, the version underscore the router over here. We want to get the version router, like version 1, version 2, and so on. And here we are going to take in the params of the VRS and version, and that will be type is of the str over here, or the string, and it's going to return us the API router over here, and the prefix will be of the version that we are sending over here. And from the FastAPI we need to import that particular router over here, and this is going to return us the router, right? So let's just go and add the generate the top over here, get the version router. Arguments is that you need to pass in the version, right? And it's going to return us the API router from the FastAPI with the version that we provide. Later you can say a version 1, version 2, and it will be much more easier to manage your the API, right? Your version of the API. And once we have this particular router set up, let's go to the interface now, and let's create one more new file over here, and let's call this one as the api.py over here, to add all of our API endpoint over here. And let's go and create the let's first create the v1 underscore the router over here, that will be of equals to the get the version router, and we'll provide the version over here. And let's import this one over here, and we got the router over here. Using this particular router, now we can create the route. So at the v1 the router, and at v1 router countries, right? Let's remove the response model for now, right? We haven't set up that correctly, so for now let's just go and remove that. And now we have the get, right? So this is the get HTTP method that we are using. I guess you know already that we have previously done. Let's create the function to get the country over here. We want to get the not the country, get the countries over here, and I guess we'll make this one as the underscore over here, right? And from here it's going to return us the countries. Now let's go and add in our what we require to call the functionality is we require this particular service over here, right? So this service has the functionality to get that particular all the countries over here. That's we need to access it over here through the constructor. And by now I guess you should know already how we can do the dependency injection with our this particular FastAPI. So here we require the country underscore the service over here, and the type will be of the, I'll make use of the ANNOITED annotated over here, ANNO, right? ANNOTATED annotated over here. And let's pass in, we require the COUNTRY country service over here, right? CRVI country service, and that's going to give us through the depends over here, and we need to call that particular function that we have defined. So that is from this dependency we need to call the get country service over there. Let's go and call that over here, and let's go and import all of our missing imports over here. That's not what we want. Let's go and import this one first. Let's import this first. Okay, so let's go and import the depends from the FastAPI, and annotate from the typing, and then the get country from our dependency. So let's just go and import that over here. Now we got the country service instance over here, and using this, what we can do now is let's go down over here, and final. I'll just not the final, sorry. It should be of the result result, which will be of the country underscore the service that we have. Get the countries over here, and country service, I guess it should be the dot, the not the dot the get the countries. Yeah, that's the correct. Let's call that particular function, and from here it's going to return us this particular result, right? So it's the list of the country entity. So let's go over here and return the result from here. That is what we are trying to do, and that should be good enough. Now what we can do is we can add the return type for this one. Actually, the return type will be of the list of the country, or else what we can do is we can also go and create the new file over here, and we can create the schema schemas.py file. We can define a specific schema for the request response object over here. So let's say we want to have the country list response over here, and this one will create as the class over here, class country list response. And this base model we will import from the Pydantic, import the base model over here. And here I'm going to set up the str status, which will be type of the let's see, str string over here. And I'll also set the data over here, and data will be the list, and the list will be of the country entity, I guess country entity, right? So that is what we need over here. So let's just go and import that from the country entity over here. So I guess that should be the one. So for the list of the country list, we are going to making use of this one. So let's go back over here. So from here, the return type will be of the country list response, right? And let's import that one from our schema. And now here what we need to do is we need to return that particular country list response over here. The status will be of the success, and then the data will be of this particular result over here, and that should be good enough. So let's just go and say from here, or not from here, let's say return country list response over here, and this one is to call the call the service method to get the countries over here, and CALL call actually, and let's add the proper intent for this one over here. And what we can also do is we'll try to add the admin over here, because we are in the admin feature. So let's add the admin over here, admin/countries over here. Next is let's just go and copy this one from here, and we need a same function over here to get the single country over here and get the countries, and I'll need to provide the route params over here, and let's provide the country ID for that one. And once we have get the country ID over here, what we can do is let's just go and grab that particular country ID over here. Country underscore the ID will be of the type of the int that we are grabbing over here. And once we have this particular country ID, that gets from this particular path automatically, and then we need to call the get the country by ID over here, and we can pass in the country over here. Call the service method to get the country by the ID over here, country ID, and that's going to return us not the list, but it's going to return us the single country entity over here. And for that also what we can do is you can also add the new response over here. Let's try to go and add this one, and you can just call this one as the country response, and it's just going to return us the country entity over here, right? And we'll go back over here, and this will be to return the country response over here, and that's over here as well. So just to return a country response, and here I need to do the same thing over here. Now we have a two API endpoint that's going to get the countries and get the, not the get the countries, it should be get the country over here, right? Or the get the country by ID, get the country by ID. I guess that should be good enough over here. And we need to import this one as well. Let's import that, the country response over here. Next is we are going to add the route to create our country. So let's just go and say that we require the add the v1 router, and we'll create a post request over here. And in the post request, let's just go and create the function def create the country over here. And similarly, we require the country service over here. That is, we need to call that particular service method as well, right? So let's go and call that one over here, and it's going to return us the country service. That should be good enough. And let's go and call the create country method over here, and let's just go and pass in the create country method. If you can remember, we need to pass in the country entity. So we need to grab that particular country entity over here. So let's just go and call the, let's say, a data over here, and this data will be of the country. You can obviously go and create the request object over here, and for now let's just go and say we'll require the country entity over here as well, right? And we are going to pass in that particular country entity over here, because if you go over here, this function requires the country entity, and what we have to do over here is we need to pass that one over here. And data is unknown, so let's just go and try to fix that over here. We need to import that actually, so let's just go over here, and I need to import it from the domain layer, the country entity over here. And now that should be good enough. So the data is over here, and this will be passed through our post request as a body. So the FastAPI will automatically go and extract the data for us, right? So if you go to here, this is actually a post request over here, and it has a lot of the other options. Instead of passing the path, response module, status code, tag, dependencies, it has a lot of other options that can actually make use of. But for now, let's just stick with the simple one. We just require the data from the request body, and we just require this dependency over here, get the service, to call the service method over here, call the service method to create the country over here, and we are returning the country response back over here. And the next is that we need to do the same thing for our update method over here. So let's just go and add it over here, and in the update we just require the patch request over here, and I'll just go and call this one as the update the country or patch the country. So let's say patch patch the country, and on the later stage we may also add the put over here, or the put request over here. So let's just go and try to call the update method over here, and in the update method it's actually requesting us to pass in the country ID as well as the country entity over here. So the country ID, we are going to grab it from the route or the route path over here, right? So we just grab the country ID, and here we also require the country ID over here, and we need to pass that country ID over here as well. And that should be good enough, I guess. And we have the final, which is to final method that we need to create here, or the route is to add the version 1 over here to delete router.delete over here, and we'll pass in the country ID over here, and we'll create a function to delete the country, and we'll pass in the country ID over here. And from here we are just going to, okay, so let's just go, and we don't have to return this actually. So for now, let's just go and remove this one over here, the return type over here actually. And what we need to do is we need to call the delete country method from our service, right? So country service, and we need to pass in the country ID over here, and then the return, I guess in the return type we want to return success and data. Okay, so let's just go and add the return type as well over here, and then the data will be of the null or the empty. So I'll just go and say none over here, right? So that should be call the service method to delete the country and return the country response with the data, and the result will be of the none over here because that is what we are returning from here. Or you can also return it true or false, but basically in the data, in the delete request, we return a no. So if you want, you can just grab the result over here, and then you can pass in the result as well over here, and this can be of the result as well over here. So these are all of the methods that we need to pass in over here, and these are all of the route. One is to get, right? And we have get all, get by ID, create, patch, as well as the delete route implemented over here. And the next thing that we can do over here is let's just go and add the status code over here. So for that, I can just go and import the status over here, I guess. status status, and here I can just go and add the status over here. So the status will be of the status code. If you take a look over here, we have the option to provide the status code, which can be of the int or the none. By default, it is of the none over here. So let's just go and add the status code, and the status code of the HTTP 200, which means it's okay over here. And this one also should return as the status code of 200 okay over here. And from here we also need to provide for the create. So for the create, it should be of the 201, which means that the that it was created, right? And the status code of created. And let's go down for the patch as well. So for the patch, we will just return the 200 as well, which means basically means it's okay. And for the delete, we are going to return a status code of 204 or the no content. Basically, once you delete that particular object, it should return, because the object has been already deleted, so it should return a no content 204 over the delete request. That's the best practice that we can implement over here. And you have a lot more other options that you can actually pass into this particular the delete method, patch method, put, right, post, get, and there are a lot of the other options that you can actually pass in over here. And we will see later on how we can make use of some of those. For now, I guess we are all good with this one. So for now, our API endpoint is ready to be used.